And now, Dr. James Ryan from Fenn Chiropractic. Everything falling into place? Only on the Greg Tish Show.
What is going on, James Ryan Fenn?
Celebrating a big birthday tomorrow.
It's your birthday? It's not your birthday tomorrow. It's your wife's birthday.
No, bigger.
No? Oh, it's bigger?
Yes.
Oh,
Whoa, that's a big noise there, man.
let's see.
What's bigger than your wife's birthday?
It's the birthday of chiropractic.
Really?
Yep. 1895, D.D. Palmer discovered chiropractic. It was the pop heard round the world.
Happy birthday, chiropractic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that, okay, my grandfather was born in 1895. And this little history there, Ed Lee Fenn, born in Georgia, they moved to Liberty County, and his parents moved with him, and they needed a house, so he built a house for them. And they didn't really like it. It didn't come out like they wanted it, so he said, forget it, I'll build you another house. Built him a bigger house. So wait a minute. This dude, my grandfather, 2 generations removed, my dad's dad, the way he built the house was he cut down the trees, he milled them into lumber, and he built the house. So just a little history of the times back in 1895, and he made his living hunting and trapping and fishing and farming and fed his family that way. They then moved to Gadsden County and over there near Providence Church, and my grandmother went to Flossakawa, Florida State College for Women, back when it was, you could either be a teacher or a nurse, and she was a teacher. But I don't know, I'd illustrate that. But the time of D.D. Palmer in 1895, obviously medicine was nothing like it is now. There were all kinds of different doctors out there, and he was exploring some things. He was very studied, very learned man, very cutting edge in science and his knowledge of anatomy and the human body. And one of his the guys that worked in his office, Harvey Lillard, was a janitor, and he had been deaf for 17 years, and he had become deaf when he'd heard a pop in his back.
Weird.
So, he was doing some experimenting with magnetic healing or something, which was a popular science, quote unquote, at the time. And let me examine your spine, and he laid him down on the table and found this bump on his back. Rumored, there's controversy here, but the second dorsal or T2 or T10 or C2, we don't know. But he found the bump on the back. When he pushed the bump on the back, there was a pop, and Harvey Lillard's hearing was restored. So that's how he discovered chiropractic. And with his, advanced knowledge of anatomy, to realize, okay, there's something there, he said, of course, bring me all the deaf people. We now have a cure for deafness. And it didn't work out. That's obviously not the way it worked. But he had another patient that came in that had a heart problem, and he had examined their spine, and he found something give. And when he made the adjustment, and it felt this misplaced vertebrae restored, the person's heart problems were restored. So, he's like, how can two things that are just absolutely so unrelated as deafness and a heart problem have benefit from this? And that's when he developed and started doing the research and figured out chiropractic. He started the first chiropractic school 2 years after his discovery in 1897 and started teaching people how to do it.
This is from Lillard. I was deaf for 17 years, and I expected to remain so, for I had doctored a great deal without any benefit. I had made up my mind not to go to any more ear treatments, for it did me no good. Last January, Dr. Palmer told me that my deafness came from an injury in my spine. That was new to me, but it was a fact that my back was injured at the time I went deaf. Dr. Palmer treated me on the spine, and 2 treatments I could hear quite well. That was 8 months ago. My hearing remains good. Harvey Lillard, 320 West 11th Street, Davenport, Iowa.
Yep.
Because he had vertebral subluxation.
Yep, that's it. That's what we do today. We examine the spine, find misalignments of the bones, put them back in place, and wherever those nerves go, they're going to do better.
It still amazes me just what that you can do with chiropractic, that you just think, everybody out there just thinks, oh, my back's hurting, I'll go get it adjusted for my back. But you're opening up the kind of super freeway of nerves to be able to the whole butt.
If you plug your lamp in, it works better. So it's a pretty simple concept. But I think the cool thing is, like Harvey Lillard's talking about there, is he'd given up. You know, I've done a lot of doctoring, and that's.
Well, I had doctored a great deal without any benefit.
And I love the old language there. It's cool, but that's the way it is now. We see people every day. I've been everywhere for this leg numbness, and okay, next thing you know, their leg works. I've been everywhere for X, Y, Z. And people ask me, well, can chiropractic help with this? Well, I move the bone, the body does the healing. So we don't have still to this day, a treatment for anything. But we do have an ability to remove interference so your body can function and heal better. And as Harvey Lillard, and his story is amazing, and still talking about it today since 1895. Dee Dee's son, BJ, continued on the tradition, and he was where Dee Dee, the dad was the discoverer. BJ was the developer. He was very much into science, wrote volumes and volumes and volumes of books, traveled around the world, but he's the one that developed chiropractic, started the Palmer, or continued on with Dee Dee's school, and it became the Palmer School, which is still around today. We have a branch in Florida, so it's still in Davenport, Iowa. We have one down near Daytona in Port Orange. But he's the one that figured it out, in the technology with X-ray, and developed. X-ray also invented in 1895, like chiropractic. They came out the same year. It's kind of cool. But then he just looking at X-ray and radiographic images, he created a machine called the neurocolometer, which could measure nerve supply. And it's this whole room, almost like as big as the studio, that was super insulated, and you could run this little thing up the back and measure nerve impulses. And
Really?
Yeah, today they've got those. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. But the technology that he did, and so the famous people that he had, this huge clinic, people came from all around the world. This is around the 20s, to get chiropractic treatment. You'd go there for the month and for the year, or for whatever. You'd go to these sanitariums. There's a R.J. Kellogg from Kellogg's Cereal had one where you would go there for your ailments to heal your gut. And he was the movie Road to Wellville. I'm going to prescribe for you 17 gallons of yogurt. The guy goes, I can't eat 17 gallons of yogurt. Oh, it's not going in that end. So, I think the chiropractic treatment, some of the famous patients, Mrs. Mayo from the Mayo Clinic was cured of her ails at the BJ Palmer Clinic. But it was interesting. You'd go and they'd examine your spine with radiograph. They'd run the neurocolometer up there. They would determine where to adjust you. They would adjust you. Then they'd put you on a gurney and they'd roll you out into a garden that he called Little Bit of Heaven. It was this lavish, beautiful garden, and you would let your adjustments set. It was a hospital for chiropractic, pretty much, and you'd go there and get adjusted 10 times a day, and guess what? Flipping worked.
Nice.
Pretty cool. But the mansion that he had up there, he was quite prolific. He was an amazing communicator. He traveled the world, collected a lot of things. He was very much into the circus.
Huh.
At the time, those were the superheroes. Those were the LeBron Jameses of the day. The circus traveled, and people were in a way that no one had ever traveled. It was the big show, and he would adjust the circus performers, and they would go and talk about chiropractic. It was one of his ways to get the word of chiropractic out.
Yeah, Carney didn't have the same kind of connotation that it does now.
Right,
back
yeah.
then.
It's like,
Yeah.
it wasn't,
Yeah,
I don't know, chiropractic maybe does sometimes, but we're trying to fix that. But, yeah, it was pretty wild, and the things that he did, and to get the message out about chiropractic. And I'm very proud to be on the radio to continue that tradition.
Let's continue the radio talk, because I want you to see if you can tie chiropractic, radio, and Ronald Reagan all together when we get back.
I'm going to try, Greg. I'm going to try.
You listen to Dr. James Ryan.
Anybody know?
Nope.
No.
It's The Circus by Erasure.
Ah, Erasure.
Now I hear it. Now I hear you, Erasure, but I've never heard the song before in my life.
Really?
I'm digging some of the 80s stuff,
It's
too.
fun. It's very much about what we were talking
I
about
was,
before.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Nailed it.
Okay.
I like the Violet Films last week a little bit.
I want to see if you can put these three together. Quad City, radio, Ronald Reagan, and put it together with chiropractic.
Four things now. Oh, gosh. All right. There you go. One of the ways B.J. Palmer got out the message about chiropractic was through radio. He, in 1922, purchased a radio station. It was the first radio station broadcasting west of the Mississippi, still around today, WOC. And that stood for
WOC,
that's
1620 AM, Quad City. How's everybody doing out there, Iowa?
There we go. And it was nice Iowa accent there. It was WC was for World of Chiropractic.
World of Chiropractic.
And he used this. That was installed a 500-watt transmitter, which was the biggest, baddest one ever done, and it was a big deal. It was rumored that that international listeners could hear World of Chiropractic, but they
500 or 50,000?
500. This was 1922, bro.
My gosh.
We're how many now? 4,700,000? I don't know.
Oh, no, you're limited now because they were able to have like 50,000, 60,000, but they would put those on the other side in Mexico, right on the Texas border, and they could hit like just swaths of the United States.
There's one of the keys they used to do that to Cuba with back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of cool. But anyway, they would talk the format still today: news and talk radio, news, weather, music shows,
and sports.
Yeah,
and
they
who
do
was
sports.
Who
educational lectures.
The first sports broadcasting job that this person ever had was at WOC.
Yes, and his name was Ronald Reagan in 1932.
Hello,
it was pretty
everyone.
interesting.
Welcome to WOC.
Yeah, it was the first commercially licensed radio station west of the Mississippi, famous for its employee Ronald Reagan, hired in 1932 as a sportscaster. And pretty interesting that a lot of the B.J. Palmer's radio station, a lot of the educational lectures were about, guess what? Chiropractic. Guess how he paid for the radio station?
Trade out?
His school, his chiropractic school. The school, this was 1922. The school blew up after the 1918 flu pandemic. All right, now hang on to your hat for this one, because the way the chiropractic works back in the day, there may be a doctor, he may be a chiropractor, he may be a medical doctor, but in 1918, the pandemic under medical methods, they had 6,400 deaths out of 10,000. Under drugless methods, which were chiropractors and osteopaths, people that went and adjusted their patients, they had 100 deaths out of 10,000.
Oh, wow.
And this is well documented in Iowa, New York, Pennsylvania, all over. But these young people that never knew anything about chiropractic, our practice was kind of the chiropractic was kind of floundering at the time. But people got well when they got adjusted. Their bodies, their immune system, they function better. People were impressed by that. They saw their families live, and these people after that went and became chiropractors. And the school and chiropractic actually blew up around this because of results. And I don't think for this pandemic we're going to get that type of statistic out of this because, it's medicine. Everybody goes to medical. They're not coming to us for that, nor do we even treat infectious diseases these days. But pretty interesting the way the whole thing came around between the pandemic, Ronald Reagan, Quad Cities, radio, and chiropractic's birthday, which is tomorrow, and it'll be 125 years old.
Wow.
But, there's been some naysayers, of course, even from the beginning about chiropractic. And one of the guys, Dr. Windsor, where does the year? But anyway, Dr. Windsor was a medical doctor. He wanted to disprove chiropractic. And so what he did was he went and did a bunch of autopsies. He did 3 different separate medical studies. He looked at human cadavers, cat cadavers, and of these 97 cadavers, he found 221 diseased organs.
Wow.
So what he did, he looked at the organ that killed the person. He followed the nerve track back to the spine, and 95.9% of the time, there was a misalignment there, degeneration, some type of problem with that joint in where the nerve came out going to run the organ. So he actually proved chiropractic rather than
by trying to disprove it, he proved it.
Yeah, I mean, the heart disease, 100% correlation. The people that died of lung disease, 100% correlation. Stomach disease, 100% correlation between the diseased stomach and the nerves which control the stomach in these studies. Liver, gallstone, pancreas, spleen, like all these things, prostate, bladder, uterus. All these things he searched and looked back. So, for the naysayers, it either is or it ain't. If I drop my phone, it's going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So same thing with health and healing. You're designed to heal. The laws of healing are no different than gravity. Physiological laws dictate your body's designed to heal itself. If you're interfering with that, not going to happen. Same thing. If I'm interfering with gravity, my phone doesn't fall to the ground. And that's what we do in chiropractic. We seek that interference. We find it primarily in the spine when these bones are out of place, pressure's on the nerve. We make adjustments to take pressure off the nerves, and oh my gosh, your body falls to the health it's supposed to have.
How big? I mean, you've got a shirt and you've got DD on your shirt.
That's BJ.
Oh, that's BJ.
That's the developer. DD was the discoverer. BJ, his son, was the developer that did the science, and Daniel was the
David Daniel.
David Daniel, the third one, was the one that really got the schools going, and really he was known as the educator in our profession.
Yeah, it's been really interesting reading up on these guys, on this family, and just how amazing it is. Yeah, and then with just trying to get the word out, and then purchasing a radio station.
Yeah.
And then a TV, television station later.
WOC World of Chiropractic TV. Some of the very first slow motion, from the very first television images ever, are BJ adjusting people on the roof of the school in midday sunlight, because they had to have a lot of sunlight. Just like in Hollywood, it was all done outside. That's why they moved there, because it was sunny. You had to do it on a clear day when you had lots of sun to get it. But the very first slow motion images of him lay it into somebody's spine before we had the techniques like we have today.
I am so glad. Yes, we'll have to show that to Matty Rowe. Yeah, it looks like a wrestling move.
Yeah,
and with the early days, with just how far that it's come.
Yep.
From I would say even when you started, I'm sure that probably every day you're learning new techniques.
We now, we pre and post X-ray a lot of people. We X-ray to measure where is the misalignment. After a series of adjustments and some home care, we re-X-ray to see not just that you're feeling better. We know now we can correct the spine to physically move bones off the nerves. When I was in school, that was crazy kind of stuff. We would never. Why would you re-X-ray somebody? Their subluxation pattern is their subluxation pattern. It's going to be that way for their life. That's still true. You revert back to the original pattern. But we know now with the technology and the techniques, we can make some pretty crazy changes to the spine to take a scoliosis and to remove that scoliosis and to straighten the spine, to take a reversal of the curve in the neck that puts a tremendous amount of pressure and can cause all kind of problems from neck and back to headaches to thyroid to heart and lung, that we can change those reversals of the curves to positive, thereby seriously changing your biomechanics and changing the nerve flow so that your body heals. So it's gone beyond that, even in my 19 years of adjusting 239,000 adjustments. I went to lunch with yesterday. A guy, Dr. Stephen Molesky, called me, and we had conversation around this. He reminded me of the Windsor autopsy. He said, hats off to him. He's been practicing 40 years.
Wow.
And still kicking butt and loving people over there, and just, it's pretty cool.
How can people, if they want to come see you to learn more about what you can do for them?
FennChiro.com, of course. So FENNCHIRO.com. My phones. If you had questions about chiropractic or history, if you have a really cool story about old school, I've got one patient that's in his mid 80s now, and he's been getting adjusted since he was a child.
Really?
So by one of BJ Palmer's students. There are still chiropractors out there that were thrown in jail for practicing medicine without a license because we didn't have licensure. So anyway, old school. If you want to talk about any of that stuff, any cool stories, 764-8432. Remember, BJ Palmer probably is smiling on us and loves you.
God loves you.
Your chiropractor loves you.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you can do about it.
So big birthday celebration plans?
Big birthday tomorrow. Yep, come by Fenn Chiropractic. We're gonna do it up big. We're gonna celebrate with chiropractic adjusting.
I think that's a pretty good idea. Do you want me to bring some nasty cake?
No, I don't do that stuff.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in this morning.
It
always brings the energy, man. That's how, I needed that.
He does. It's awesome. It's the Zen of Fenn. I love it.
Shade McMillan, Leon County Sheriff's Office Public Information Officer, when we get back here on the Greg Tish Show. Real Talk 935.